What is going on, everyone? Mr. 95 here, coming at you with yet another crazy forum battle. And trust me when I say it, this one is going to be the craziest so far. I remember that I once made a video of Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan, versus Donnie Yen, and versus Jet Li. And the video was amazing, I loved the response I got out of it. But at some given point, I was looking at the video of Bruce Lee and I thought, whoa, there kind of have been a lot of Bruce Lee copycats, especially in the video game world and the anime world. And I came with the idea of making a video out of it here on YouTube. Because I wanted to ask to all of you, who might be the strongest Bruce Lee copycat? So the question is, who is going to win between Kenshiro from Hokuto no Ken, Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat, Fei Long from Street Fighter, Marshall and Forrest Law from Tekken, and Jann Lee from Dead or Alive in a devastation battle? We are going to take a look to each of these characters to then come to a conclusion. For some reasons, I decided to start the battle by first analyzing Street Fighter's Fei Long. He does seem to me kind of the weakest of the fighters, but at the same time, that is just my feeling, and as far as I know, he might be the strongest, you never know. Fei Long is definitely one of the more interesting Bruce Lee inspired characters. He resembles him not only in looks but also in biography. For example, Bruce Lee and Fei Long both comes from the same city. He is, just like Bruce Lee, a martial arts movie actor, though he does enjoy good matches in underground fighting areas where he can find worthy opponents to spar with. When it comes to his personality, Fei Long is known to be a little bit cocky, which is by the way unlike Bruce Lee, unless you can prove me wrong of course. Fei Long was born in Hong Kong and was known to be very talented. He began training Kung Fu from the age of 6 and eventually began developing his own form and fought on the streets to sharpen his skills. That reminds me of the fighting style Bruce Lee developed on his own called Jeet Kune Do. Fei Long refers to his fighting style as Hiten Ryu. It focuses on a variety of acrobatic kicks and rigid strikes, which gives him a powerful up-close pressure. Well, we can say that Bruce Lee also fights more or less the same way. Bruce certainly used very acrobatic kicks and vicious strikes. They definitely have a lot in common, and that's why Fei cannot be taken lightly. And if you, by the way, do some research on Fei Long, you'll find out that he has tons of these references towards Bruce Lee, which is very nice. Next fighter will be Dead or Alive's Jann Lee. And personally, I don't know anything about him aside of him being a playable character in the Dead or Alive games. And Dead or Alive, to me, is that game with only hot chicks with big 3D moving. Anyway, from what I found, Jann Lee is a bouncer and a Jeet Kune Do martial artist. His only goal is to become the greatest fighter of all time, and that's why he decided to enter the Dead or Alive tournament and not the Street Fighter or King of Fighter or the Mortal Kombat tournament. This man has, in my eyes, one of the most complex background story compared to the other fighters. He has never seen the faces of his parents as they died when he was very young and left him an orphan, alone to fend for himself. And if you guys wouldn't know, having parents is obviously very important. Parents are there to give love to their kids, they are there to protect and raise their children, but having to grow up without even knowing the faces of your parents is definitely harsh and to me even cruel. Jann Lee had to live in poverty, he had to wander the streets for food, and had to face many hardships. In order to protect himself, Jann Lee learned Jeet Kune Do by watching various martial arts movies, especially the ones of Bruce Lee. On the contrary to Tekken or Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, I guess that Bruce Lee did exist in the world of Dead or Alive, which is by the way very nice. Jann Lee at first fought to replace the feelings of loss from when his parents died, but eventually he got skilled enough to get a job as a bouncer at a high-class club. And in the course of his journey, Jann Lee progressed not only in skills but also in spirit, encountering many combatants at some time, exchanging fists and philosophies. To me, life is all about progress and learning, and that's something you can clearly see in Jann Lee. He walks, he struggles, he falls, and eventually gets up to stand yet again strong on his feet. Even though I did not know a lot of this character, I sort of grew attached to him. A very well developed character, and despite the fact that he is a Bruce Lee inspired character, he grew apart and became his own entity, with a minimal Bruce Lee reference aside of his battle cries. Definitely a well developed character with an interesting biography. Also, and that's important to know, Jann Lee has a sort of weak point. He is way too overconfident to the point of him appearing quite arrogant, just like Fei Long and unlike Bruce Lee. And he's also someone that loves looking for a challenge in other fighters, on the contrary to Bruce, who preferred teaching others rather than test his own skills. Jann Lee is obviously very fast in combat, using fast strikes, and has hard-hitting super blows, more of a strike character to be blunt. He loves keeping his enemies on the defensive with his speed and counter, and I think that this goes in line with the concept of Jeet Kune Do, which focuses on intercepting the enemy by countering directly and by being faster than them. Now let's go to Tekken. Martial Law is an American fighter of Chinese descent. I know that Bruce Lee at some given point lived in the USA, so I'd say that he is a perfect copy. And in looks and fighting moves, I am sure that he is probably the most accurate Bruce Lee copy. I have to say that Martial Law has also an interesting background story. It all began before the first King of Iron Fist tournament. Law worked in a Chinatown restaurant in San Francisco while dreaming of opening his own martial arts school. And at some given point, he achieved that goal of his. He had his school. And a lot of stuff happened after. His students were attacked by the Korean Taekwondo fighter back. At some given point, Marshall sort of gave up on the idea of having a school and he opened a restaurant. And at some given point, he had to declare bankruptcy. So a lot did happen in his life. And I think that that's what makes him interesting. But I have to say that I'm not really happy that he has become a joke character. But I'll talk about it later. Martial Law's moveset is heavily inspired by Bruce Lee's moves. As I said, he and his son are the best copies in my eyes. He is an up-close and a personal fighter that loves confusing his opponents. This character forces his opponent to play his game due to his speed and very confusing moveset. Marshall, by the way, has a son named Forrest Lau, who is also in this battle, and both Forrest and Marshall can be seen as a tribute to Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee. And when it comes to Tekken, too bad Forrest hasn't got that much character development. That's why I believe that his character is sort of wasted, because he had a lot of potential and resembles Bruce Lee even more than his father. The only time Forrest Lau fought in an official Tekken tournament was in the third one. Unless if you consider Tekken Tag 1 and 2 as canon, of course. His fighting style is pretty much the same as his father, but it varies on different points. It would be a good debate to find out who is stronger between Marshall and Forrest. Sure, Marshall in the game has a much wider moveset, but story-wise, I think that Forrest represents a new wind, the new generation. Fresh leaves if you want to. And as I said before, I think that Marshall and Forrest in the later Tekkens have been reduced to joke characters. It feels as if there is way too much humor and less seriousness as they go along, and I think that's truly a huge waste. But anyway, let's go to the next fighter. The Bruce Lee inspired character in Mortal Kombat is none other than Liu Kang. When it comes to Mortal Kombat, that's when the combat turns out to be very magical. The entire world of Mortal Kombat is a world with alternative universes, different timelines, hells but no heavens, killing, decapitating, and yeah, killing. A very different world than the ones of Street Fighter, Dead or Alive, or Tekken. Liu Kang as a fighter, despite that he died a couple of times, is known to be a very strong combatant. He became the Grand Champion of Mortal Kombat throughout the first 4 tournaments, and by the way, a title that became undisputed in the original timeline. As far as we know, Liu Kang has trained all his life at the Wuxi Academy. To me, the Mortal Kombat world is way too vast to waste some more time on Liu Kang's backstory, because he deserves a separate video for it. But when it comes to his powers and abilities, Liu Kang possesses incredible agility and he is a martial arts master. These skills were developed during his training with Barai Cho. It is suggested that Kang meditates regularly in order to keep increasing strength as well as maintain it, and when I said magical, this man is capable of using the element of fire, and he can even morph himself into a fire-breathing dragon. But for the sake of Jann Lee, Marshall and his son and Fei Long, there's going to be no killing, no fire and no shapeshifting. Last but not least, you have the 64th successor of the Hokuto Shinken style and also considered as one of the greatest successors in its 1900-year history, Kenshiro. "You are already dead" is his catchphrase. I'm going to try and say it in Japanese. Omae wa mou shindiru. I hope that sounds great. Kenshiro's fighting style is an ancient Chinese martial art dating back from China. And let me explain to you why this style is not normal but rather overpowered. The art's power is focused into channeling one's energy in a single blow and strike it into the 708 hidden channel points in the human body. These pressure points can not only destroy the enemy from within and causes the victim to explode, but it allows the victim to be controlled involuntarily or otherwise incapacitate him. Heck, you can even heal certain physical and psychological wounds, like restoring a person's voice, eyesight, or memories. And while a normal fighter uses 30% of his natural abilities, a Hokuto Shinken successor knows how to utilize his remaining 70%. And now that I made this video, I really believe that Kenshiro is simply too overpowered for this matchup, despite him being very inspired of Bruce Lee. I mean, even if I ask him not to attack the pressure points to avoid the explosion of Jann Lee or Law, he still would be too overpowered. I mean, this man is capable of staying 53 minutes underwater. He can intercept a quick arrow the moment it is shot. So I think that it is more than obvious that this man is probably going to win. And that's why I want you all to imagine two battles. One battle between Fei Long, Forrest and Martial Law, Jann Lee and Kenshiro, and one without Kenshiro. Who would win? Let me know down below, and don't forget to check out the description box for more Nostalgia 9 to 5 videos.